Hello and welcome to Odds on Serie A match day 4. No team has won the 3 games. We have 4 teams with 7 points: Juve, Inter, Torino, and Udinese. And we have Daniele Fisichella to analyze with us this new match day with Milan in a bit of crisis. They have a tough game or an easy game against Venezia and then a tough game in the Champions League, Danny.
Yes, everything starts again with a bang, because obviously we got European football coming up, but Serie A more live than ever, and a Serie A season that restarts after the successes of the Azzurri in the Nations League, 2 out of 2, and guess what? No other European leagues had more scorers in the Nations League than Serie A. 21 goals scored by Serie A players, the likes of Reinders, Dumfries, 𝐬𝐭𝐴_𝐳𝐵, McTominay, and of course Frattesi, 𝐜𝐭𝐻𝐿. So yeah, maybe we're expecting a lot of goals in this weekend of Serie A.
Hopefully, let's analyze everything with Daniele Fisichella. Of course, with you guys, remember to ask any questions to Danny. It's his last show with us, take the opportunity to say goodbye and to ask any questions to Danny. Of course, press the like, subscribe. Let's go on now with the show. First game, Danny, is 𝐿𝐵𝐵𝐿𝐴. Bologna with only 1 point, bottom of the table, only 1 goal they scored as well. And I would say it's more concerning Bologna's form, a really slow start, draws with Empoli and Udinese at home, lost to Napoli in their only away game, and they have an important week ahead because they are going to do their Champions League debut against Shakhtar Donetsk.
Yes, it's an important week for Bologna, returning to Europe's top competition after almost 60 years. And, the game against Shakhtar probably is the most winnable of the group. So obviously they will be focused on that. But in Serie A, they need to catch up. I think Bologna haven't been clinical enough because they created chances, especially in the first game against Udinese. Against Napoli also, they played on the front foot. Against Empoli, show some signs of improvements, but they seem to have lost that control. Sometimes maybe they overcommit players, so obviously they conceded in every single game so far. The good news for Italiano is that he gets back some of his best players, especially on wide areas. 𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗀. There are more options out of a sudden. Orsolini, Dominguez, Odegaard, Carson, as well as 𝐜𝐵𝐿𝐴 Jr., which we'll see at some point. But this is a tough one for Bologna because they travel to a newly promoted side, but not just any newly promoted side. 𝐿𝐵𝐴, who is star-studded, who has signed players from all around Europe, although Rafael Varane has gone missing already after the first injury, and 𝐿𝐵𝐴 makes their own debut after 21 years. They had to wait 21 years and 3 weeks because they played 3 consecutive away games. Now the Stadium Senigallia is finally ready to host what looks to be a very interesting game. Bologna have got very good stat possession. Again, they need to be more clinical. 𝐿𝐵𝐴 could have got a point at Udine. They missed the penalty in the end, but their average expected goal per game is the lowest in Serie A, 0.8. They need to do more. Bologna has never won away at 𝐿𝐵𝐴, 7 draws, 2 wins. The last time they played, they were defeated 5-1, but again, that was 21 years ago. I think this is going to be a goals game. Both teams to score 2, that pays 2, doubles your money. Could be a draw. Yeah, Bologna maybe not losing 1-1. Both teams to score. That's the one I like.
Rafael Varane, Danny, is 31 years old only. He looks already a veteran. Of course, he started very young, playing in France, then in Real Madrid, very unsuccessful at Man United. Let's see how Serie A fits him.
If he ever plays. If he ever plays, because he's been injured and there's been question whether he's going to be in the squad at all. So he might not even play a single minute in Serie A after those 20 minutes he played in Coppa Italia against Sampdoria. We really don't know.
Let's see, Danny. I need your magic. Trio is asking you. Also, he's asking me if I'm Portuguese. No, I'm from the neighbors. Danny, next game is a good one. Empoli Juve, because Empoli had an amazing start with 5 points. Last season, they couldn't score a single goal, and now they beat Roma away. They drew with Bologna, so hats off for their start. Juve, first draw of the season, still without conceding a single goal. They couldn't beat Roma, though they have 7 points, and I guess it's a good start.
Yes, it's a good start, but as good as last year. Last year, Juventus, after 4 games, had 10 points, 3 wins in a draw, and then the slump began. I'm not expecting Juventus to lose here, but I think you have to be really cautious and you take a lot of patience. There's a lot of new players that need to be integrated. For sure, everyone was going to look at 𝐿𝐭𝐵 starting his first game, the biggest signing of the summer for Juventus. 𝐿𝐭𝐵 who scored with Argentina. But against Roma, I don't want to say they took a step back, but it looked like you were watching a bit of game between Mourinho and Allegri, 0-0, very, very cagey, and you would not have thought, the revolution Thiago Motta started was going into the right direction. But, the first 2 games have been positive, but, take everything with a pinch of salt. The first game Juventus played against Como at home, newly promoted, clearly they were not prepared for that debut. The second game against Verona, for the first 25 minutes, Juventus struggled a lot against a low block. Then they scored because Verona gifted them the goal. So don't expect Juventus to score 3 or 4 goals all the time. I think the real strength of this Juve side is the defensive solidity. It's the first time since 2014 that they kept 3 consecutive clean sheets in the league. But this is because Motta likes to control the game with a lot of passes, a lot of exchanges, slowing down the tempo, but never commits too many plays forward. Last season, Bologna were very strong defensively, not because they had amazing defenders, although 𝐭𝐿afiori was outstanding, but because of the tactical setup. They were defending in possession without over-committing. Look, Juventus have won 6 of the last 7 games at Empoli, including last season on Matchday 3, so one matchday before, averaging 2.3 goals per game. Empoli are unbeaten in the first 3 games of the season for the first time since 2006-2007. They're a very young side, look fit. I think what they done last year with Nicola, they stabilized, they find a good system, 3 at the back. Now they're applying it again. They're a young side, the likes of course, Fazzini, who's injured for this game. I think it's going to be a big miss, but they play well. Colombo as well up front. I think Juventus is just got more than Empoli to be troubled by this one. And then you're probably gonna mention at some point in the show why big teams after international break, are they going to struggle? Are they not going to struggle? When I look at the numbers, so further down the show, we can talk about this. And that's why I go with Juve. Juventus to win, it's a very, very good odds, 178. It's a big threshold for a team that is much stronger to win this one. 178. We talk about why you shouldn't necessarily go against the big teams after international break. 178 for now.
Are they relief after Chiesa's departure, Danny?
Well, it was a natural move. Unfortunately, the player had become a burden, which is strange to think, considering Juventus had paid 60 million for him a couple of seasons ago. It was never going to fit into the project. It's strange because I think Motta, the kind of player, is good for Motta. Motta likes to play with wide players, played a lot in possession. But, if he wasn't fitting, he wasn't fitting. I think probably was more a decision taken in the management. So, yeah, good outcome. Sorry.
Bless you. Well, we have want you going for a straight Juve win, Maxwell Juve win or draw, a 1 Juve double chance. So a lot of trust on this new Juventus playing back to the Champions League against PSV on Tuesday. Also in the Champions League, but playing against Liverpool is going to be a tough game. Venezia, Milan, still no wins for Fonseca, but image in the Olimpico of Roma, the players already against the manager. Well, things are not going the Fonseca's way. They should beat Venezia. If they don't beat Venezia, Danny, a fire can be set up at San Siro.
Also because on Tuesday they welcome Liverpool, and they're still winless. Fonseca is under pressure. It gives me the impression that Fonseca is trying to change everything, to make too many changes altogether. The philosophy, the style of play, perhaps a more gradual approach. This is a team that was very coherent, very cohesive under Pioli. The results didn't come, although they won a Scudetto two seasons ago. But I don't think it's a team that needs to be revolutionized. What needs to happen is that they need to have a better defensive protection, better defensive setup. The defensive transition is where Milan suffers a lot, perhaps because of the fullbacks push on too high. But now with a stabilizer like Fofana, maybe they should have more protection in those areas. Look, it is something that will be tested against a strong opposition, probably not against Venezia, which they've only won one game in 1947, by the way, at San Siro against Milan. They are winless, Milan, in the last 5 games, considering last season, which is the worst streak since 2018. But I think this time the win is going to come. It is worrying for Milan that they've conceded in the last 5 Serie A games. But on the other hand, they got enough firepower to beat a Venezia side. They've only scored 1 goal so far this season after 2 minutes against Lazio. Had a lot of chances against Torino, didn't take them. And that's what happens to a newly promoted side. If you don't take the chances, end up losing. And I think this trip to San Siro look ominous. I think actually the odds for Milan to win are way too high. I'll put them much lower. The question mark is whether Abraham is going to start, Tammy Abraham, or Morata, who's back. But Milan, I think I've got more than enough to win it. And then it's another tip to favor the favorites. In this case, the Asian Andy at minus 1.5, 190. I think they're gonna win easily this one with a couple of goals margin. It shouldn't be a surprise. Even a Milan win 2-0 pays well. I think it pays 220 because of defensive threat I mentioned. I think Venezia simply don't have them in them just yet to create an upset.
1 goal scored by Venezia so far in this Serie A. So Cash Out was asking you if Venezia could take a draw at San Siro. Danny's opinion is no.
And let me explain you this. Since we bring it now, and it's a good question. And this is probably something that's going to be in the minds of a lot of bettors this weekend across Europe. Champions League, after the international break, go against the top teams. Okay, I think this is something that it has happened before. But we do always remember the big losses, but we forget the routine wins. Just for example, we forget if Real Madrid beats Getafe 4-0, but we remember when Real Madrid loses 2-0 to Betis. But most of the time they do win. So I had a look at the numbers. I want to look at the numbers, and I took into account Serie A, Premier League, and La Liga from last season. Now, I only look at the big teams, okay? And in Italy, the big teams for me last season were Inter, Milan, Juventus, Napoli, and Roma. So after the international break last season, there were 10 wins, 2 draws, and 2 defeats for these teams. And both defeats came in April, by the way, against good sides. Napoli lost to Atalanta, Juventus lost to Lazio, which I haven't included in the big teams. Of course, they played each other every now and then, so I didn't include that. Translate that into the Premier League with the 4 big teams: Manchester City, Arsenal, Liverpool, and Man United. Even stronger trend: 9 wins, 2 draws, 1 defeat. You can imagine which team lost. Man United, of course, lost to Brighton. Then go to La Liga. Last season, Barcelona, Real Madrid, after the international break, 6 wins, 2 draws. One of those draws was Real Madrid 1-1 at Seville, which it's fine. You can imagine. So in total, last season, and I didn't take into account League One and Bundesliga, for obvious reason, I think the competition is not quite there. And Bayern Munich had a poor season anyway. 25 wins, 6 draws, and 3 defeats after the international break for top teams. And why is that? Larger squads, the possibility to make 5 changes. Players nowadays can recover physically quickly. So not necessarily you have to go again. You need to look at the fixtures. You need to look at the fixture and who they play against. Maybe the next round of fixture after the Champions League, that's where you might want to go against the top teams. And there is a very spicy Juventus-Napoli, which is probably what a lot of bettors are going to focus on, but not for this weekend.
Interesting, especially in a weekend where we are going to see the favorites facing clear underdogs like this Milan Venezia, or also in the Premier League. We are going to have the video in the channel later on today. The big teams are playing against medium to low table teams, so they are super big favorites. That's why one or 𝐵𝗐𝗍𝗀𝗀 are also going for Milan straight win or Milan clean sheet. These are the games to be played on Saturday. In Italy on Sunday, the early kickoff is Genoa-Roma. Genoa lost their first game of the season against Verona, but held Inter with a draw in match day one. Roma, Dani, is still looking for the first win of the season. At least they grabbed a draw against Juve. We saw 𝐵𝗵𝗏𝗀 scoring with Argentina, and we still have to see 𝐻𝗵𝗵𝗀𝗀's first goal with Roma.
He's injured, so he's not going to score this weekend. He started becoming a little bit of a joke, but let's give him a bit of time. I've got my suspicion about 𝐻𝗵𝗵𝗀𝗀. When they signed in the summer, I thought
one season man.
Yeah, I thought everything went well for Girona. Good system. They played. They were the new teams. Nobody expected them. Then I saw them at the Euros. Okay, Ukraine went great. I thought, are Roma overcommitting themselves? Is he really better than Lukaku? Well, they couldn't keep Lukaku, but is he really better than Tammy Abraham? We'll see. I got my discussions with my friend in Italy about 𝐻𝗵𝗵𝗀𝗀, but Roma got 2 free transfers at the end of the session, 𝐴𝐵𝗀𝗋𝗀 and 𝗏𝗄𝗀, so very good signings on a free, which strengthened the defense, which was the area that needed strengthening for Roma, because Roma so far have been unlucky, I must say, third for shots, hit the woodwork already 4 times, expected goals plus 2.72, so they should have scored at least 3 goals more, but expected goals against 2 plus 80, so they should have conceded even more goals than what they should have scored, which tells you it's a very unbalanced team. Creates a lot, concedes a lot. There is a lot of control in midfield. Perhaps Manu Kone, who had a very great debut, very good debut with France against Belgium, he's the man to stabilize them. They're going to play with a false 9 in Genoa because of the absence of 𝐻𝗵𝗵𝗀𝗀, so it's Dybala and Soulé. Let's see if that makes them a little bit more fluid. Genoa, for me, are a question mark because, of course, they lost in the summers Retegui and Gudmundsson. Now in the up front, he's got Pinamonti and Vitinha. They are normally strong at home, Genoa. They only lost 5 games at Marassi of the last 21. Earlier in the season, managed to draw 2-2 against Inter and deserve the point. Beat Roma last season 4-1. They do normally score. They only failed to score in 4 out of 21 occasions, Genoa. But the last game was worrying. 2-0 defeat against Verona. Didn't really create a lot. I think the odds for Roma on the Asian handicap minus 0.25 are really good. 198, almost doubles your stake. And, you got a bit of a parachute. I don't think Roma are going to lose this one. If they draw, you only lose half a stake, but you are in for the win here, and you can almost double your money, even if it's an easy 1 or 2-0 win for the Giallorossi.
Low scoring game, Dani, perhaps this one? Or not really?
Possibly low scoring game. You would expect Roma to be stronger at the back. Now they have added a little bit more depth. They got more experience there. You would expect maybe them not to concede. They were good against Juventus defensively. They kept them at bay. So if they repeat the same performance, I think they can nick a goal against Genoa. Yeah, maybe it could be a 1-0 win.
Maxwell and Ian are going for Roma. Double chance for this game. Let's see if the Rossi's men are able to grab the first win of the season. Next game is Atalanta-Fiorentina. A good one. Atalanta smashed by Inter before the international break after a difficult transfer window. They also lost to Torino. This is going to be the first game, home game of the season for them, and they are playing against Arsenal in Champions League. Italian teams have a very difficult debut in the Champions League. Fiorentina, Daniel, king of the draw in this start of the season. 3 draws in the Serie A, but also in the conference against 𝗵𝗃𝗃's academy, suffered a lot and drew the games.
Yeah. Maybe they deserve to go out. In the end, they were reduced to 9 men, only thanks to 𝗏𝗍𝗀𝗀, who made some heroic saves. they went through. Now they have an easy group in the Conference League. They avoided Chelsea, but it never happened before for Fiorentina to draw 5 consecutive games at the beginning of the season. They need a little bit more from their creative players. 𝐻𝐿𝐵𝗲𝗀, who joined from Monza, 𝗀𝗵𝗀, who they signed from Genoa, which you haven't seen yet. And they look a bit disjointed in the first few games. Maybe now after the international break, Palladino has got them better set up. The good news for Fiorentina is that 𝐻𝐿𝐵𝗲𝗀, 𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐲, is scoring goals, also with the national side, already 4 goals this season. They got him for a very low price. So if he manages to score well, I mean, he's still very young and he hasn't expressed his potential. It could be the bargain of the season. So could be the return of Robin Gosens from Union Berlin, now playing for Fiorentina, scoring on the debut, then goes back to Bergamo, where he established himself as one of the best wing backs in Europe before the injuries. 29 goals in Serie A for Gosens, is the highest scoring defender since 2017. For Atalanta, a little bit of a reality check, their 4-0 defeat against Inter, but they were missing dozens of players between defenders. Of course, they were missing 𝐬𝐵𝐴, 𝐻𝐿𝐵𝗲𝗀, they were missing Zaniolo, 𝐿𝗀𝗻𝗀, 𝗂𝐿𝐵𝗲𝗀 is still injured, Scalvini is going to return later in the season. So it was a makeshift formation. And now Gasperini gets back some of his best players, as well as 𝐻𝐿𝐵𝗀 is going to be available. I think Atalanta from now on, they're going to start kicking on the season. But of course, very tough to compete in the Champions League, playing 2 extra games. The team has been strengthened, but equally has lost 𝐿𝐵𝗀𝗀, the best midfielder they had. But the players wanted to leave. Both teams to score 175. Hard to imagine a low-scoring game between these two sides. They always go for it. Both teams to score 175. I think the odds are really good.
Ian is highlighting Atalanta to win. Odds are around 1.8 for Gasperini's men to beat Fiorentina. Cash out king is going for corners over for Atalanta, over 5.5, Danny?
Difficult. Yeah, potentially, because they play at home and you would imagine them to attack a little bit more. But yeah, careful with that one, because the corners, if a team takes the lead, is 2-0 up, they might give up, or they might not attack too much, and you might end up being stuck only with 5 corners. It's an interesting threshold, really. But yeah, maybe I will go for over 1.5 goals and over 4.5 corners. I think at the end of the day, you get pretty much the same odds.
Next game, then, is Torino-Lecce. Torino, one of the best teams in this start of the season. 2 wins, 1 draw. Beat Venezia, beat Atalanta, also very close to beat Milan in the opening match day. Lecce won against Cagliari, first win of the season, and they did it, Danny, playing with 10 men the whole second half.
Yeah, credit to Lecce, won the first game. They needed that after 2 bad defeats against Atalanta and Inter. But the calendar was tough for them, to be fair. So now in the first winnable game, they managed to do it. Let's see how they do it away from home. Last season, they struggled a lot away from home. They were not a high-scoring side. Only towards the end of the season, when Luca Gotti arrived, they picked up better results. And now they're going to go to Torino probably to play on the counter-attack, as they normally do. But this is a different Torino side this season. Paolo Vanoli, first time he manages in Serie A, has got plenty of options. He has changed the tactical system a little bit. He can start with 3 at the back, but he can even evolve playing with a number 10, perhaps Sanabria behind the 2 strikers, Adams and 𝐶𝐻 or even with 𝐻𝐿𝐵𝗲𝗀 on the wing. So there is a lot of flexibility. Torino is blessed with players that can play in wide areas, so they can change during the games. And Vanoli seems a manager that is not afraid of taking a risk. But there's been a shift in dynamics from last season. Torino at home barely scored, and so far they managed to beat Atalanta, coming back after going behind 1-0 because of the goal of Retegui. But the underlying metrics, I know it's only three games, but suggest Torino have been a touch lucky. They average 2.02 expected goals against. They've only per game, so that will be over 6 goals. But they've only conceded 3 so far. This is because 𝐵𝗏𝗀𝗀 saved the penalty against Atalanta. Venezia missed a lot of chances. But it is a sign they are taking more risks. And because they are taking more risks, I think in the end, they're going to get rewarded against a lesser side. Lecce, who's missing Patrick Dorgu, 19 years old, Danish left winger. The next big thing probably to come out of Lecce. Score with Denmark on his debut. A few Premier League clubs seem to be interested in him, but he's not going to be there. So Lecce a bit, lacking some weapons there. As I said, Torino is going to take risks, and I think they're going to get the reward. 193 for a home win, I think, is the best odds you're probably going to find so far. At this stage, in this match day for Serie A, I think you should take the risk. 193, Torino to win.
Time for Duvan Zapata to score,
according
to Cash Out King. Next game, Danny, Cagliari, Napoli, very interesting one, with Napoli coming back in the extra time against Parma with 2 goals in the extra time. Parma had the goalkeeper sent off before that. Second straight win after beating Bologna in their only away game. They lost to Verona. Cagliari, 2 points, 2 draws at home against Roma and 𝐿𝐵𝐵𝐻. Good odds if you are trusting contest, man.
If there is a change in approach, in change in dynamics from last season and from the first away game of the season when they lost to Verona, definitely you should take those odds. I think really now in the next 3 weeks we're gonna see what Napoli are all about, because they got a massive advantage not playing in Europe, especially this season with the new Champions League, the new Europa League, where every single game is going to matter, where every single goal is going to matter. Teams like Inter, Milan, Juventus won't be able to rest players in the Champions League if they're ever going to think about it. So they need to go on full throttle, and I think we're going to see many more rotations in Serie A. Napoli have got a good calendar now. They're playing Cagliari. They go to Juventus next Saturday after Juventus play with PSV. And I think they got such a strong squad now with the addition of McTominay, Billy Gilmour, Neres, Lukaku. I think, Conte's got what he wanted. Now it's up to him to deliver. It's still a Napoli side that is not perfect. If you look at the last few minutes against Parma after they took the lead, they almost conceded in stoppage time. They can still be vulnerable sometimes in wide areas and in defensive transitions. But if Conte manages to instill a new philosophy, hard work, I think we're going to see a Napoli side that is going to fulfill his potential. Now the question mark is about 𝗲𝗏𝗀. He might be out, picked up an injury with Georgia after scoring. Napoli so far have produced a lot of attacking phases. Expected goals 1.75 per game, which is the highest value in the league. I imagine Lukaku is going to start. Raspadori scored with the national team, so his confidence has been boosted. But Cagliari have come on the back of 2 good performances, even against Roma at home. They had chances. They do normally score at home, Cagliari. They only failed to score in 4 of the last 21 home games. Last season, they scored 28 goals at home, 4 more than Napoli, 2 more than Juventus. Napoli away record, looking at last season, the beginning of the season, is terrible, of only 5 clean sheets in 20 games. Look, I'm really curious to see the new signings in action, especially McTominay. I think it's going to be a big hit in Serie A. It is a player that maybe at Manchester United got some stick, sometimes undeserved. Okay, sometimes lacks a little bit of composure, but the physical prowess, the athletic skills, the timing of the runs into the box, I think is going to be a big success in Serie A. Cagliari, as I said, they are an attacking side, 7 for shots. They hit the woodwork 4 times. If you look at their expected goals metrics, are quite astounding. Plus 3.53 in terms of goal they should have scored, plus 3.73 in terms of goal they should have conceded. So the games of Cagliari should have been much high scoring. For me, is an over 2.5 goals, 188. Napoli probably wins this one, but maybe not without conceding. 2-1 Napoli, maybe 3-1 Napoli, over 2.5 goals for me.
Lukaku already delivering for Antonio Conte. This is a perfect match. Lukaku,
that's what he wanted.
And Conte. Last game on Sunday is Monza Inter. Inter already top of the table with 8 goals scored after thrashing Atalanta. Also beat Lecce at home, but their only away game was a draw against Genoa. They have 2 tough games this week and Monza is not the toughest one, but the debut in the Champions League against Man City is going to be a huge test for Inzaghi's men. Monza, Dani, 2 draws in the first 3 games.
Yes, Monza getting back on track, but I think again it's a team that hasn't been changed much during the summer. So the only change is the manager basically. But they did lose 2 of the biggest players, Di Gregorio, the goalkeeper, and Colpani. So I think they need still to get to grip with that. Look, I think for Monza this is basically a free hit. If they manage to get a draw, it's fantastic, as they did 2 seasons ago. But if they lose, this one is not a disaster. I think Inter still have shown the same hunger and the same desire to be considered a heavy favorite for this one. The question mark is how much Inzaghi is going to rotate, considering they're going to play Manchester City. Probably Frattesi, who scored twice with the national side and only started 6 times for Inter for the league, but he's got the same goals per minute average than Bellingham since last season. So Frattesi probably demanding and deserving a chance. We will see 𝐜𝐵𝐵𝐿𝐴𝐵𝐿𝐴 from the first minute, which I'm really curious to see. He adds something again in the goal scoring department. Taremi has received a lot of compliments for how he played. He's missing a goal. Let's see if they all play. I think, Inzaghi is going to rotate. As I said, I don't think Inter are particularly suffering after the international break. Last season, after the international break, they won the derby 5-1, and in total it was 3 wins and 1 draw, and the draw was 1-1 against Juventus. So I think Inzaghi has got enough in his squad to rotate and still get a win at Monza. I like the Asian handicap -125, 197. Again, if Inter just wins by 1 goal, you only lose half a stake. But I think it could be a large victory. Last season, Inter recorded a very large victory in Monza. 197 for Inter to win with an Asian handicap -125.
2 more games, Dani, to be played on Monday. Ennio Tardini, Parma, Udinese. Great start for both sides. Udinese struggling last season to stay in Serie A, already 7 points, beating Lazio or Como at home, drawing away with Bologna. Parma 4 points, which is a great start, also very close to get points from Napoli, and at home, remember, they were able to beat Milan.
Yes, Parma, another big surprise. A young side, the youngest side in Serie B last season, but well set up by 𝐿𝐵𝐿𝐴, a team that likes to go forward, has got energy. The likes of Mihala, Man, the 2 Romanians, they score a goal apiece for Romania during the international break. Also, Bonni looks a threat, and then 𝐵ernabéu, which you know very well, of course, Olympic champion with Spain. There's a lot of quality there, a lot of players that like to play the ball. They're not afraid of coming out with the ball. They were unlucky to lose against Napoli. Parma, they probably deserve to draw. You know, in the end, they had to play 20 minutes with an outfield player in goal. Otherwise, they would have at least got a draw. Interesting that so far 100% of Parma games have been both to score yes, so will it continue? And Udinese, big surprise. I mean, nobody gave them a lot of credit, especially with the new manager, Runiak, used to manage in Poland, but you know, maybe a little bit lucky against Bologna, against Como. Bologna could have won, Como could have equalized in the end, but you know, they look a bit more propositive. There is more role, more of an importance for 𝐻𝐿𝐴𝐵𝐿𝐴, which let's not forget is a World Cup winner still, which, you know, nobody's going to take them away from that. And you know, they kept Lucca, they kept Bijol at the back. They got an interesting wing back in 𝐜𝐵𝐴𝐵𝐿𝐴, Lautaro Giannetti again at the back, Argentinian, a promising young player. It's only the second time in the last 13 seasons that Udinese remained unbeaten in the first 3 games. So big achievement for them. I don't think they're going to necessarily lose this one, you know. Both teams to score 181. I think Parma games are going to be interesting this season to watch. Both teams to score 181.
Mustafa is going for Asian handicap 0 for Parma.
It pays well. It pays well, Mustafa. Yeah. It pays well, but yeah, I think it's going to be tight. Huh?
I guess it pays similar to both teams to score, around 1.8 probably. And the last game is Lazio. Verona, Lazio 4 points. That draw against Milan was their last result. Still, Dani, I guess it's a difficult team to bet. We still don't know where they are heading to. Whereas Verona, great start all beat Napoli, beat Genoa, lost to Juve. We have here, Danny, Lazio, all 3 games, both teams to score. Verona,
Yes.
all 3 games, both teams to score. No.
Yes, strange trend here. And this is the derby of Marco Baroni, the Lazio manager, who last season managed Verona, saved them, great achievement. The season before managed Lecce, saved them. I think we already seeing some of the ideas of Baroni last season at Verona translating into Lazio. Lazio are playing a little bit more expansively, and they have a lot of firepowers up front. Castellanos already scored 2 goals. 𝗵𝗲𝗲𝗀, which they signed from Salernitana, scored against Milan. He's already 21 goals for 𝗵𝗲𝗲𝗀. It's quite a prolific goal scorer. And then the likes of 𝗍𝐭𝐴𝐽 and 𝐜𝐴ZEGHSEN on the other flank, which was introduced at halftime against Milan, and that was the change that changed the game, the substitution that changed the game. Tavares is a strong additional left back. Lazio haven't got a squad strong enough to compete in 3 competitions, but I think they can easily achieve a top 6 finish, like they did last season, top 6, top 7, and maybe take some scalps on the way. I think they're going to be a change in dynamic. It's a younger Lazio side. They're no longer the veterans Immobile, Luis Alberto. Probably they're going to miss that experience in big games, but against sides that are weaker than them, I think they got enough firepowers to unlock them. Good success for Verona, Genoa. Again, they started the season strongly. That's normal what small sides do in Italy. Try to start strongly the season, have a physical preparation that gives them a little bit more of advantage so they can rack up the points early. It was the first time, by the way, Verona won at Genoa since 1989, so a big achievement for them. Paolo Zanetti has managed them well. Again, this is not the sort of manager that goes to play defensively, so I think they're going to be goals here. 2.5 goals, over 2.5 goals, 208. Last season, Lazio had a very negative record. I think they had 14 games 0-0 at half time, but I think things have changed. Over 2.5 goals, 208 for a nice Monday night football with plenty of goals.
Okay, Mustafa is more daring, going for over 3 goals. Cash out is going for Verona draw. Well, remember, by the way, since you are giving us your tips and your predictions, that we have tipsters competitions going on monthly, yearly, so you can participate absolutely for free. You just need to register on Oddspedia and post your tips. If you are among the best, you get a cash prize every month, so it's good for you to keep betting and playing with Oddspedia. Well, Danny, let's finish our long-term relationship collaboration with your last safe bet.
Last safe bet for now. AC Milan, Asian handicap -1, 145.
So it's a different one than what we saw.
So we saw something, Sassuolo Lecce. We saw something from last year. Probably that was from last year. So
say it again, Daniel.
Say it again. AC Milan, and that's the one. That's the right one. AC Milan, Asian handicap -1, 145.
And Diaca?
As I said, the trend for me this weekend in Europe in the 5-match league is for the big teams to win. And they're going to go for Juventus to win, Inter to win, Lazio to win. Total odds 436.
Is Lazio a big one?
Lazio is a medium size, but I could have put Milan. If I put Milan in it, the odds would have gone down. And with Roma, I wasn't quite sure. So I'm going to go for Lazio. You can put Milan in that, but it goes down to 3.25. And I thought it was a little bit, but yeah, probably put Milan as well. Yeah.
Well, Danny, it's been a pleasure all this time working together. I wish you the best, of course, in Bocca al Lupo. And thanks, everyone. Big applause for Daniele Fisichella. We will follow you wherever you go. Bye-bye, Danny. Thanks, everyone.
Ciao.